While the Phillies took care of business on their end, they still await what opponent they will face in the opening round of the playoffs for them. The Mets and Brewers are fighting it out for the right to face this Phillies team, and we are thrilled by the news that this series has been extended. Me and Luke are recording directly after Game 2 of the series, which, of course, happened to be a 5-3 victory by the Brewers here to extend it to a Game 3. Luke, I'll throw it to you right away. This is a huge deal for this Phillies team. More pitchers, more hitters, more wear and tear on these guys' bodies. What's your biggest takeaway out of the gate?
Yeah, I was saying I'm praying for like a 20-something inning baseball game tomorrow. Yeah, I mean just let these dudes duke it out.
Yeah.
Just get all these guys tired. And I think it's big. I think my biggest thing from tonight, one, that was an awesome game from the Brewers. They looked down early. They went down early. They were very quiet, like just not many hits, and then two just mammoth home runs to really seal it. Just a really big win, one for Milwaukee, and two, I think is big for the Phillies because if the Mets were to win this series, and I mean really if they win tomorrow night, then this really sort of like doesn't matter. But I think tonight was a really big just like reality check.
Punch in the mouth.
I just, if the Mets won the night, I think they like sweep the wild card. They're kind of just on that vibes train, and then they roll in. And I said this today. I am not scared of the New York Mets.
No.
Listen, I think they're a good baseball team. If they weren't a good baseball team, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. But I'm not scared of the New York Mets. The New York Mets are not coming into Citizens Bank Park and beating the Phillies in the playoffs. It's just not happening. So whether it's the Mets or the Brewers, we will wait to see. But at this point, I'm definitely hoping for the Brewers. I don't think their arms are necessarily as good. And I think the offense has some pop like we saw tonight. But I think the Mets offense getting hot scares me a little more really than the Brewers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. To be perfectly honest, watching the first two games of this series, I think the Phillies are better than both teams and pretty comfortably and
by a wide margin.
Yes.
Honestly, I really think, and I think you can use like the hot debate, but based down to just overall skill from like the 26 guys on the team, like I think the Phillies are better than both of these teams, or like you said, by like a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, no, I would agree there that like it's nice for all this talk about, the rest versus rust and the momentum of playing straight through. We've heard all the noise from both sides of things, and we've seen this Phillies team scrap the other pathway here. It's nice to just be sitting back, let these guys fight it out, and then be ready to focus up. And I need to stop seeing conversations like this on the timeline, saying things like getting the Mets is just awful for the Phillies.
Stop.
The fans will take over home field, continues on, team of destiny, all this nonsense. I've seen it everywhere. They're the New York Mets. Everybody take some deep breaths. Everybody relax.
This is where I get heated. This is where I start to get going because people love to only talk about the 67 games that the Phillies lost and not the 95 that they won.
It's true.
All I saw today, and we talked about this a lot in the Crossing Broad Slack today, is that the entire conversation that I hear about the Phillies is if the bats go cold, they won't win. Breaking news. If a baseball team can't hit, they won't win in the playoffs. I had no idea that was the case. Like yeah. I've never heard that one before. And I get it. You can go back and you can look at 2 games from last year and like, please go ahead and do that. But like, there is a wide difference in the lineup and the skill level and how they're playing from last year compared to this year. I mean, there's guys contributing way more. Nick Castellanos is a complete different player than he was last year, really. I mean, he's looked, and I think the stats will tell you otherwise. Like, I think most of his stats from last year were actually a lot higher than this year as far as average and OPS, but I feel way better in him as a hitter right now this year than I did last year. Guys like that. I mean, the difference in a guy like Alec Boehm from this year to last year, I mean, that guy was in the MVP running for the start of this season. Like, yeah. I mean, he had an unbelievable start, and he's still been playing really well. And I haven't even talked about Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner. I just think this lineup is so deep. And and I get it. Like you can sit there and you can wish because sometimes like and this sounds weird to say there's times where I feel like some of these fans like want the bats to go cold like just so they can prove a point. But like I just I don't think that way. I never have. I can't think that way about sports because it'll drive me up a wall.
Yeah.
But it's just like I I just think people forget how good the Phillies are.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think you're right about all of that. And I'll also like for starters, like if you say every single team is not going to win the World Series, you're going to be right 29 out of 30 times here.
Correct.
That like
Correct.
that's just the reality of the situation. The bottom line is this is a really good baseball team that we've seen from start to finish this year, and beyond just the on-field play. Sometimes there's too much made about this, but I do think that there's been a mentality shift in this Phillies team that it does feel like they're carrying themselves in a little different way. They're no longer the new kids on the block making a surprise run. They're the standard of what playoff baseball is about at this point. So I'm thrilled for them to get the break. Do you believe in momentum in baseball in general, Luke, as kind of more of a philosophical question?
I do.
Okay.
I because I would be lying if I said I didn't because the 2022 Phillies were all momentum. I don't. They were favored. I think in like 2 games that year.
Yeah.
I think momentum matters, but I think it gets to a point where momentum can only matter until you face a team that's a lot better than you.
Hmm.
Like I think there's been years past where there's been teams that have won some big wild card series and then they just go and get smoked in the division series because
Right.
they're just not as good. I think a big example right now of that is the Tigers. And listen, this is not a flack on the Tigers because I am all in on this Tigers team. They're awesome. They are so much fun.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're gonna win many more games this playoffs. And listen, I didn't think they were gonna win the first series, and they did. But I think wild card baseball is a little different than like the division series and the CS. It's just a lot more sort of high leverage baseball because obviously you're playing the best of the best. So I think momentum matters, but I also think rest matters just as much. And I think this Phillies team needed it, and I think they really got it at the right time. I mean, hey, you can look at the Eagles right now. I think if you get rest at the right time, I think that's really big. So I would say momentum matters, but I don't think it matters as much as people think it does.
Yeah, I think that's a fair outlook there. And ultimately, I think this loss by the Mets is a huge hit to the momentum, even if they do come back to win Game 3. But as things currently stand, that would be Jose Quintana stepping on the mound, the opening day starter for the Mets there. Luke, what's your level of, I guess, concern with that? And we're just big Brewers fans tomorrow. Is that how the cards are shaking out?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to play the Brewers. I mean, I already said to you, I am not scared of the Mets,
Sure.
but I'd rather play the Brewers. I just think the Mets have a little sort of twang to them. I think they're kind of that wild card team that just sort of snuck in, and they really weren't supposed to be there. But yeah, I mean, as far as tomorrow, definitely going to be on the Brewers. Definitely hope. I don't know exactly who the Brewers are pitching tomorrow,
Hmm.
but I believe Jose Quintana, like you said, is on the mound tomorrow for Game 3. I don't think the Brewers have announced Game 3 yet, but we'll definitely be on the Brewers tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, our Milwaukee Brewers. So ultimately, we'll be sitting here waiting. Shout out Reese Hoskins. Shout out the rest of the boys. Hopefully, they
Yeah,
pull.
Reese needs to get a hit.
Yeah,
Come on, man, help us out. I think he's over so far.
he's been kind of tough up there to watch.
Yeah.
Can't lie either. So,
Oh yeah.
Reese, let's get back to some playoff
Come on.
baseball in Philly. That's what you should
Need
want.
a big home. I mean the
Bat spike.
one of the ultimate Met killers. A nice
It's true.
big homer tomorrow. Get us some vibes going here, Reese. Please, for the love of God.
Yeah, absolutely. But for you guys, appreciate you tuning into this video. We want to hear from you in the comments. What's your prediction for Game 3? Give us a score prediction in the comments, or which team you would rather this Phillies team face, and what's your level of concern if it is a Mets matchup for this team. Me and Luke are going to be breaking things down from every single angle once we do have that matchup secured and know exactly what the route for this Phillies team is. So make sure you're smashing that subscribe button to keep up to date with each video that we have popping out here. Drop a like on this video, and me and Luke will be talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.
Peace.